I am 38 years old. For 12 of those years, I was a wife. I thought I was a good one. I thought I had a good husband. His name is Mark. It feels strange to say his name now. It tastes like ash in my mouth. We were in a small, sterile room. The air smelled like old paper and faint, cheap coffee. It was a mediation room, our divorce mediation. On one side of the long table sat Mark and his lawyer. On the other side sat me and mine, a man named Mr. Davis. In the middle, at the head of the table, sat the mediator. The mediator was a woman with tired eyes. She had seen too many stories like ours. Or so I thought. She cleared her throat and looked at the papers in front of her. The main point of contention was the house. Our house. The one I had poured my heart and my inheritance into. "Let's discuss the marital property," the mediator said. "Specifically, the residence at 124 Willow Creek Lane." Mark's lawyer started to speak, but Mark held up a hand. He wanted this moment for himself. He leaned forward, a slow, smug smile spreading across his face. It was a smile I had once found charming. Now, it made my stomach turn. It was the smile of a predator who had its prey exactly where it wanted. He looked directly at me. His eyes were cold and triumphant. Then he said the words that shattered everything. "There's nothing to discuss," Mark said, his voice smooth and confident. "The house is in my lover's name." The entire room went dead silent. It was not a normal silence. It was a heavy, thick silence, the kind that presses in on you from all sides. I could feel the air being sucked out of the room. I watched the mediator's pen, which had been poised over her notepad, freeze in midair. Her mouth was slightly open. Mr. Davis, my lawyer, stiffened beside me. I heard him draw in a sharp, quiet breath. But my eyes were locked on Mark. He was still smiling, enjoying the shockwave he had just sent through the room. He looked proud of himself. He looked like he had just won the entire game with a single, brilliant move. In that moment, I realized this was not just a divorce. This was a war he had been planning for a very long time. My own heart felt like it had stopped. It was a physical sensation, a painful clench in my chest. The house. My house. The one with the garden I planted myself. The one with the kitchen I designed, tile by tile. The one where I thought we would grow old. In his lover's name. I didn't even know he had a lover. The words echoed in the crushing silence. Lover? House? Her name. I felt a strange calm descend over me. The initial shock was like being plunged into ice water. But after the gasp, after the freezing pain, comes a strange numbness, a clarity. I saw him for what he was. Not the man I married, not the partner I had trusted, but a stranger, a thief. The mediator finally found her voice. It was shaky. "Mr. Miller, could you please repeat that?" she asked. "Certainly," Mark said, leaning back in his chair, a king on his throne. "The property at 124 Willow Creek Lane is legally owned by Chloe Vance. It is not marital property. Therefore, it is not on the table." Chloe Vance. The name meant nothing to me. Just a random collection of sounds that had somehow stolen my future. Mr. Davis spoke, his voice tight with anger. "That's impossible. My client's name is on the mortgage. She provided the entire down payment from a personal inheritance." "She may have provided a gift," Mark's lawyer countered smoothly. He had clearly prepared for this. "But the title is what matters. And the title is in Miss Vance's name. We have the documents to prove it." They were so confident, so smug. They thought they had covered all their bases. They thought I would crumble. They thought I would cry. They thought I would scream. I did none of those things. I just sat there, my back straight, my hands folded calmly on the table in front of me. Inside, a fire was starting to burn. It started as a small, cold spark of disbelief, but it was quickly growing into a hot, focused flame of rage. I finally looked away from Mark. I looked at my lawyer. I gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a signal he understood. We were done here for today. We will need to verify this claim, Mr. Davis said, his voice now cold and professional. This meeting is over. He started packing his briefcase. I stood up. I didn't look at Mark again. I couldn't. If I did, I was not sure what I would do. I could feel his eyes on me as I walked toward the door. I could feel his victory. He thought he had broken me. He thought he had won. As I walked down the long, quiet hallway of the law office, the numbness began to wear off. The pain started to seep in. It was a deep, gut-wrenching pain. Betrayal is a uniquely cruel kind of grief. You are not just mourning a loss. You are mourning the fact that what you thought you had never really existed at all. 12 years. 12 years of my life, my love, my money, all of it. A long con. I got into my car in the parking garage. I sat there for a long time without starting the engine. The silence was a different kind now. It was my own. In the quiet of my car, I let out one long, ragged breath. I did not cry. Crying felt like a luxury I could not afford. Crying was for victims. I would not be a victim. He had started a war. I realized that now. And if it was a war he wanted, it was a war he would get. He may have been planning his attack for years, but he made one critical mistake. He underestimated me. He thought I was just a wife. He forgot I was a fighter. He forgot that I was the one who had built our life. And I would be the one to burn his down to the ground. I put the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. It was time to go to work. I drove to the small apartment I had been renting since Mark asked for the divorce. It felt temporary and sad. The walls were thin. The furniture was cheap. It was a place for someone whose life was on hold. When I walked in, the emptiness of it felt heavier than usual. This was my life now. A small beige box, while a stranger named Chloe Vance lived in my house. I dropped my keys on the flimsy kitchen counter. I stood in the middle of the room and did not move. The shock was returning in waves, each one colder than the last. The house was not just a building. It was my security. It was the place my parents' legacy had helped me buy. I had used the money they left me for the down payment. I told Mark it was for us, for our future. He had held me and told me it was the most wonderful gift he could imagine. He said it meant we were truly building a life together. Those words now felt like acid. Every memory was tainted. Every shared moment was a lie. How long had this been going on? Who was Chloe Vance? The questions swirled in my head, making me dizzy. I needed to talk to someone. I needed an anchor in this storm. I picked up my phone and dialed my best friend, Jessica. She answered on the second ring. "Sarah, how did it go?" she asked. Her voice was full of cautious optimism. I tried to speak, but my own voice broke. A single dry sob escaped. "Jess," I managed to say. "What is it? What happened?" she asked, her tone shifting immediately to concern. I took a deep breath. I had to say it out loud. I had to make it real. "He gave the house away," I said. The words sounded insane. "What do you mean he gave it away?" Jessica asked. "Like he's not splitting it?" "That's what the lawyers are for." "No," I said, my voice flat. "He already gave it away. Months ago, years ago, I don't know. He transferred the title to his lover." There was a silence on the other end of the line. It was a different kind of silence than the one in the mediation room. This was the silence of pure, unadulterated shock. "His what?" Jessica finally whispered. "His lover," I repeated. The word felt disgusting on my tongue. "He said her name. Chloe Vance. He put the house in her name." That's not possible," she stammered. "You can't just do that. Can you? That's theft. That's grand theft auto. But for a house." Her attempt at humor didn't make me smile, but it did ground me a little. "I don't know what it is," I said. "But he did it. He sat there and smiled, Jess. He smiled like he had just pulled off the heist of the century. That monster, she hissed. That absolute snake. Sarah, what did your lawyer say? He was shocked, I told her. He ended the meeting. He said we have to verify it. But they were so sure of themselves. They said they have the documents. Okay, Jessica said, and I could hear her taking a deep breath, shifting into problem-solving mode. That was one of the things I loved about her. She felt the emotion with you, but she didn't let you drown in it. Okay, so we verify it. How do we do that? That was the question. How did I start to unravel a lie this big? My mind, trained for numbers and logic, started to churn. I am an accountant. I trace money for a living. I find discrepancies. This was just the largest, most personal discrepancy of my life. County records? I said, thinking out loud. Property records are public. I should be able to look it up online. Do it, Jessica said immediately. Do it right now. I'll stay on the phone with you. I walked over to my laptop, which was sitting on the small dining table. I flipped it open. My hands were shaking slightly. I pulled up a search engine and typed in the name of our county and property record search. The official website came up. I'm on the site, I told Jessica. Okay, what does it ask for? Address or owner name, I said. I typed in 124 Willow Creek Lane. My fingers hesitated over the enter key. I was afraid of what I would find. I was afraid of the confirmation. Sarah, press enter. Jessica's voice was firm but gentle. I pressed enter. The page loaded. And there it was, a string of official-looking text. Property address, 124 Willow Creek Lane. Current owner, Chloe Vance. My breath hitched. It was real. It was true. It's her, I whispered. It's in her name, Chloe Vance. When? Jessica asked. Does it say when it was transferred? I scrolled down. There was a section for transaction history. Purchase date, October 14th, 2021. Buyer, Mark and Sarah Miller. My heart ached seeing our names together like that. It felt like a lifetime ago. Then below it, another entry. Title, transfer. Date, February 28th, 2022. Seller, Mark and Sarah Miller. Buyer, Chloe Vance. Sale, price, $1. February of last year, I said, my voice hollow. He transferred it for $1, just 4 months after we bought it. We had been married. We had been happy, I thought. We were still decorating the nursery. We were talking about our future. And all the while he was plotting this. He was giving our home, my home, to another woman. That's proof, isn't it? Jessica said, her voice sharp with anger. A $1 sale is not a real sale. That's a fraudulent transfer. Even I know that. I think so, I said. My brain was starting to catch up with my heart. The accountant in me was taking over. It shows intent to hide an asset. But there was another piece of the puzzle that was even more terrifying. The document listed both of us as sellers. That meant I would have had to sign something. A quitclaim deed, most likely. A document that signed away my rights to the property. I searched my memory. Had I signed something like that? It seemed impossible. I would never sign away my house. But Mark had handled so much of the paperwork. He always said he was taking care of things so I wouldn't have to worry. Then, a memory surfaced. It was faint, but it was there. It was late one night. I was tired from work. Mark had come into my home office with a stack of papers. Hey, honey, can you sign these real quick? He had said. It's for the refinance application, just standard stuff. I remembered being annoyed. A refinance? We just bought the place. Better interest rate, he had said smoothly. It'll save us money in the long run. My guy says we have to act fast. He had seemed so normal, so helpful. I was exhausted. The pages were full of dense legal text. He had pointed to the signature lines marked with little yellow sign here stickers. Just here, and here and here, he had said. I had signed. I had trusted him. I told Jessica about this memory, about the refinance papers. And did you ever refinance? She asked. No, I said slowly. A few weeks later, I asked him about it. He said the rates went up again and the deal fell through. He said it was no big deal. Sarah, Jessica said, her voice grim. He didn't have you sign refinance papers. He had you sign away your house. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I felt sick. I had signed my own destruction. I had handed the pen to my executioner and thanked him for his help. What do I do? I whispered. I felt so stupid, so naive. You don't do anything stupid, Jessica said firmly. You don't call him. You don't text him. You call your lawyer. First thing in the morning. You tell him everything you just told me. The timeline. The $1 sale. The fake refinance papers. This is not just a divorce anymore, Sarah. This is a crime. She was right. This was bigger than a messy separation. This was fraud. This was a calculated, cruel theft. After I hung up with Jessica, I sat in the dark for a long time. The anger was burning away the shock and the pain. He had played me for a fool. He and his lover, this Chloe Vance, were probably laughing at me. Living in my house, sleeping in my bed, drinking wine on the patio I had built with my own 2 hands. I thought about the down payment. The 20% we needed to avoid private mortgage insurance. It was a little over $100,000. It was all that was left of my parents' life insurance. I remembered transferring it from my savings account to the escrow company. I remembered the feeling of pride, of building something real and lasting. He had taken that from me. He had taken my parents' legacy and given it to a stranger. I stood up and walked back to my laptop. I logged into my online banking portal. I went back through my statements month by month until I found it. October 2021. There it was. A wire transfer for $105,000 to the title company. The memo line read, "Down payment for 124 Willow Creek Lane." I saved the statement as a PDF. Then I went through my old emails. I searched for renovations, kitchen, garden. I found dozens of messages between me and Mark. Emails where I discussed the budget. Emails where I approved invoices from contractors. Emails where I had written, clear as day, "I will cover the cost of the new flooring from my bonus. The money from my savings will pay for the bathroom remodel." I saved every single one. I was building my case, document by document. He thought he was smart. He thought he had committed the perfect crime. But he had gotten sloppy. He had left a trail of my money, funding his grand betrayal. I worked through the night. The sun was starting to rise, casting a gray light into my small apartment by the time I was done. I had a folder on my desktop labeled Theft. Inside it were bank statements, emails, and a screenshot of the county property record. It was a start. It was armor. The next morning, I was in Mr. Davis's office at 8 a.m. sharp. I hadn't slept. My eyes were gritty, but my mind was sharp. I laid everything out on his conference table. He told me they were refinance papers, I said, my voice even. He lied. Mr. Davis looked through the documents one by one. He was a methodical man, his face usually impassive. But as he looked at the $1 transfer and then at my bank statement showing the $105,000 down payment, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It was cold anger. "This is fraudulent conveyance," he said, his voice a low growl. "It's a classic move by a cheating spouse trying to hide assets. But this is brazen." "What can we do?" I asked. "We can fight it," he said. "We file a motion to have the transfer voided, but it will be a battle. He will claim you knew about it. He will say you signed the quitclaim deed willingly." "He will lie," I said. "Yes," Mr. Davis agreed. "He will lie." His lawyer will argue that your contributions were a gift to the marriage and that you gifted your share of the house to Miss Vance. A woman I've never met? Why would I do that? I asked, incredulous. He'll invent a reason, my lawyer warned. He'll say you were feeling generous. He'll say you were trying to help her out of a tough situation. They will create a narrative. Our job is to dismantle it. I felt a surge of frustration. But I have proof. I paid for it. It's my money. I know, he said calmly. And this is excellent evidence. He tapped the folder I had brought. This shows the financial trail, but the signature is the key. He's betting everything on that signature. He's betting that a judge will see your name on a legal document and decide you are bound by it, regardless of the circumstances. I thought about that moment again. Me, tired and distracted. Him, smiling and patient, holding a pen. The casual betrayal of it all made me sick. So he could get away with this? It's possible, Mr. Davis admitted. But unlikely if we are smart. We need more. We need to prove he had a pre-existing relationship with this woman. We need to establish a pattern of deception. We need to prove this wasn't a sudden decision. It was a long-term plan. His words echoed what Jessica had said. This was a crime that needed to be investigated. We can subpoena his bank records, Mr. Davis continued. His phone records. We can find out exactly who Chloe Vance is and how long she has been in his life. Do it, I said without hesitation. Subpoena everything. Leaving his office, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had a plan, but now I had one too. He had his lover and his lawyer. I had the truth and a growing pile of evidence. The next few days were a blur of anxious waiting. I tried to work, to focus on my client's financial statements, but my own numbers were the only ones that mattered. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, thinking it was Mr. Davis with news. I decided I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed to do something. I needed to know who this woman was. This Chloe Vance. I did something I had never done before. I typed her name into a social media search bar. Her profile was public. The first photo I saw was a punch to the gut. It was her, a smiling, blonde woman, probably in her mid-20s. She was standing on my front porch. My porch. The one with the 2 rocking chairs I had bought at a flea market. She was leaning against the railing, holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "Home Sweet Home." I felt a wave of nausea. I scrolled down. There were more photos. A picture of her feet propped up on my coffee table, a book in her lap. A selfie taken in my bathroom mirror, the one with the custom tile I had spent weeks choosing. A shot of a dinner party in my dining room, with people I didn't know sitting in my chairs, eating off my plates. She was not just living in my house. She was inhabiting my life, erasing me. And then I saw him. Mark. In the background of one of the photos, a blurry shape laughing with another man. It was dated 6 months ago, before he had even asked for the divorce. The anger returned, sharp and hot. This was not just fraud. This was a deep personal humiliation. They were flaunting it. They wanted me to see it. Or maybe they just didn't care. They thought I was so thoroughly defeated that it didn't matter. I kept scrolling, my heart pounding with a mixture of pain and fury. I was looking for a crack, a mistake, something I could use. Then I found it. It was a small thing. A photo of Chloe standing in the garden, my garden, holding a bouquet of the roses I had planted. A friend had commented on the photo. The comment read, "So beautiful. So glad you finally have a yard. Bet you don't miss that awful old apartment." Chloe had replied with a laughing emoji. Not one bit. No more fighting with the landlord, LOL. That awful old apartment. Fighting with the landlord. It was a thread. A tiny, insignificant thread. But I knew from my work that sometimes a single thread is all you need to unravel everything. I needed to find that apartment. I needed to talk to that landlord. I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. This was the next step. Mr. Davis was working the legal angle, the money angle. I would work the human angle. Mark and Chloe thought they were so clever, but they had left witnesses. They had left a history, and I was going to dig it all up. I took a screenshot of the comment and the name of the friend who had posted it. My investigation was about to get personal. Mark had no idea what was coming. He had woken a sleeping giant. He thought he had stolen my house. He was about to find out he had only given me a reason to take back my life. The next day, I made a decision. I was going to find that apartment building. The friend who had commented on Chloe's photo had a public profile, too. It was foolishly open. I scrolled through her pictures looking for clues. I saw photos of her and Chloe together, out at bars, at a concert. In the background of one photo, taken on a balcony, I could see the sign of a distinctive local restaurant. I knew that restaurant. It was downtown, in a newer, trendy neighborhood full of high-rise apartment buildings. It was a long shot, but it was a start. I put on a blazer and some nice shoes. I wanted to look professional, official. I drove downtown and parked near the restaurant from the photo. I looked at the apartment buildings nearby. There were 3 of them. All glass and steel, all catering to young professionals with money. I walked into the first one. The lobby was sleek and modern, with a concierge sitting behind a polished desk. I took a deep breath and approached him. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm and confident. "I'm with a private auditing firm. We're conducting a routine residence verification for a former tenant, a Chloe Vance. Can you confirm if she lived here?" I was completely making it up, but I said it with such authority that the concierge didn't even blink. He typed her name into his computer. Vance. Vance. He murmured. "Nope. No one by that name here." My heart sank a little. "Okay. Thank you for your time." I went to the second building. I gave the same speech to the woman at the front desk. She was more suspicious. "We can't give out tenant information," she said stiffly. "Of course," I said smoothly. "I understand completely. It's just for a credit application. Perhaps you could just confirm the years she was a tenant, if she was?" She stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to decide I wasn't a threat. She typed the name. "No Chloe Vance in our system," she said, and turned back to her work. 2 down, 1 to go. My hope was fading. This was a stupid idea. What was I even doing? But I had to try. I walked into the third building, the Pinnacle. The lobby was the fanciest yet. The concierge was an older man with a kind face. I gave him my speech, but I changed it slightly. "I'm a mortgage underwriter," I said. It was a lie, but it felt closer to my world. "I'm finalizing a large loan for a Chloe Vance, and I just need to verify her previous address history. My records show she may have lived here. Can you help me?" He looked at me over his glasses. "Chloe Vance. Oh, her. Yeah, she lived here." My heart leaped. "She did?" "Yep," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Left about a year ago. Broke her lease, in fact. Cost her a pretty penny." This was it. This was the place. "Broke her lease?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "That's unusual." "Well, her boyfriend took care of it," the man said, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Paid the 2-month penalty in cash. Seemed desperate to get her out of here." My blood ran cold. "Her boyfriend?" I asked. "Yeah, some guy. Mark, I think his name was," the concierge said. "Nice fella, always polite. We all thought he was her dad at first. Paying for her fancy apartment. Mark. He had paid to break her lease. He had paid to move her into my house." The concierge was still talking. "Funny thing is, that same fella, Mark, he was the one who co-signed her original lease when she moved in a year before that. Must have really trusted her." The world stopped. He co-signed her lease a year before she broke it. That meant he was financially tied to her 2 years ago. 2 years ago. That was before we even started looking for a house. before my parents' money had even cleared my bank account. This wasn't an affair that started after we bought the house. This wasn't a recent betrayal. This was a long, calculated plan from the very beginning. He had a whole other life with this woman. He had been funding her lifestyle while he was married to me. He had used me. He had used my inheritance to buy a house for his long-term girlfriend. I felt a dizzying mix of rage and a strange, vindicating clarity. This was it. This was the key. The breakthrough. This piece of information destroyed his entire story. He couldn't claim he had just met her. He couldn't claim I had willingly signed the house over to a stranger he had just started dating. Their relationship was established. It was documented. "Is there any way," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "that I could get a copy of that original lease agreement? For my underwriting file? It would be a huge help." The concierge looked hesitant. "I'm not really supposed to do that." I reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet. I took out a $100 bill and slid it across the counter. "I would be so grateful," I said quietly. "It would save me a lot of paperwork." He looked at the money, then at my face. I must have looked desperate. He sighed. "Wait here," he said. He disappeared into a back office. I waited, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was everything. This one document could change the entire case. He came back a few minutes later with a single sheet of paper. It was a copy of the first page of a standard lease agreement. At the top, it listed the tenant, Chloe Vance. And at the bottom, in the section for a cosigner or guarantor, was a signature. I knew that signature. I had seen it on my wedding certificate, on birthday cards, on the fraudulent deed to my house. It was Mark's signature. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I folded the paper carefully and put it in my purse. It felt as heavy and as powerful as a weapon. I walked out of that building and into the bright sunlight. The world looked different, sharper, clearer. The fog of grief and confusion had lifted, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I knew the full truth now. The whole, ugly, devastating truth. My marriage had been a lie. My husband was a con man. He had seen me as a mark. My inheritance was his jackpot. And the house was the prize he intended to give to his real partner. He thought his plan was perfect. He thought he had erased the past. But he had left a paper trail. And I, the quiet accountant he had so thoroughly underestimated, had just found the first page. I went straight from the apartment building to Mr. Davis's office. I didn't have an appointment, but I told his receptionist it was an emergency. When he saw my face, he ushered me into his office immediately. "What happened?" he asked, closing the door behind us. I didn't say anything at first. I just opened my purse, took out the folded piece of paper, and laid it on his desk. "He co-signed her lease," I said. 2 years ago, before we even bought the house." Mr. Davis picked up the paper. He read it carefully. His eyebrows shot up. He looked from the paper to me, and a slow, grim smile spread across his face. It was the first time I had ever seen him smile like that. It was the smile of a hunter who had just cornered his prey. "Sarah, this is it," he said, his voice low and excited. "This is the smoking gun. This proves premeditation. This proves a long-term clandestine financial relationship. This blows their entire story out of the water." "I know," I said. I felt a sense of relief so profound it almost made my knees weak. For the first time since that horrible day in the mediation room, I felt like I could breathe again. "His claim that he just met her is a lie," Mr. Davis continued, his mind clearly racing. "His claim that this was some spontaneous decision is a lie. This document proves he has been financially supporting her for years. He entered into our house purchase under false pretenses, with a pre-existing plan to defraud you of your asset." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now, we change our strategy," he said, his eyes gleaming. "We are no longer just on the defensive, trying to claw back the house. We are on the offensive. This isn't just a fraudulent transfer anymore. This is a pattern of calculated fraud, and we have the proof. He tapped the lease agreement. This, combined with the bank records we've subpoenaed, will paint a very clear picture for a judge. The picture of a man who manipulated his wife to steal her inheritance. He paused, looking at me. But we don't have to go to a judge. Not yet. We can use this to force his hand. What do you mean? I asked. We reconvene the mediation, he said. But this time we set the terms. We present this evidence. We show him that we know everything. We give him a choice. Either he signs the house over to you, free and clear, and provides a significant financial settlement for the fraud and emotional distress, or we take this to the next level. What's the next level? I asked, although I had a feeling I already knew. The next level involves the district attorney, Mr. Davis said, his voice hard as steel. What he did with the mortgage application could be considered bank fraud. Lying about his financial liabilities, like being a guarantor on a lease, is a federal crime. He signed a document for the bank swearing that he had disclosed all his debts. He lied. The bank gave us a loan based on that lie. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about losing the house in a divorce. This was about prison time. He could go to jail? I whispered. He absolutely could, Mr. Davis confirmed. And people who commit white-collar crimes like this are often very, very afraid of going to jail. They value their reputation and their freedom above all else. We are going to use that fear. A cold shiver went down my spine. This was bigger than I had ever imagined. But I didn't hesitate. He had shown me no mercy. I would show him none. Let's do it, I said. Schedule the mediation. The next week was the longest of my life. Mr. Davis's office formally requested another mediation session. Mark's lawyer agreed, sounding smug and overconfident on the phone, according to my lawyer. They thought we were coming back to beg. They had no idea the ground had shifted so completely beneath their feet. During that week, the subpoenas came through. Mr. Davis called me as he reviewed Mark's financial records. It was even worse than I had imagined. "Sarah, it's all here," he said over the phone. He wasn't just paying her rent. He was giving her a monthly allowance disguised as consulting fees from his fake startup. He paid for her car. He paid for vacations. All while telling you that you two needed to tighten your belts. I listened in silence, each word another stab to the heart. I remembered all the times I had given up something I wanted. A trip to see my sister, a new coat because Mark said money was tight with his business. I had been subsidizing his affair. My hard-earned money was funding their secret life. The total amount he funneled to her from your joint accounts and his business account over the last 3 years is staggering, Mr. Davis said. It's well over $200,000. I felt a wave of dizziness. $200,000 on top of the house. The sheer scale of his greed was breathtaking. "We have everything we need," Mr. Davis said. "He's walking into an ambush and he doesn't even know it." The day of the mediation arrived. This time I didn't feel nervous or afraid. I felt cold. I felt powerful. I chose my outfit carefully. A sharp, dark gray suit. Armor. I walked into the mediation room and saw that they were already there. Mark, his lawyer, and this time, a woman sitting next to him. She was blonde, pretty, and looked incredibly pleased with herself. It was Chloe Vance. She was wearing an expensive-looking silk blouse and a delicate gold necklace. I recognized the necklace. It was a unique piece from a local designer I had pointed out to Mark months ago. I had told him I was saving up for it. He had looked at the price tag and scoffed, saying it was ridiculously extravagant. And now it was around his lover's neck. She gave me a small, condescending smile as I sat down. The smile of a winner. Mark looked just as smug as he had the first time. They truly believed they had me. The mediator, the same woman with the tired eyes, looked at us all warily. "All right," she said. "Mr. Davis, you requested this meeting. The floor is yours." Mr. Davis nodded. He calmly opened his briefcase and took out a single file folder. "Thank you," he said. "We are here today to discuss a resolution to the matter of the property at 124 Willow Creek Lane and several other financial discrepancies." Mark's lawyer let out a sigh. "Mr. Davis, we've been over this. The house is not marital property. My client's girlfriend is the legal owner." "Ah, yes, the girlfriend," Mr. Davis said, his voice dangerously pleasant. "Miss Vance." He nodded at Chloe, who preened slightly. "Let's talk about her. Mark, when did you and Miss Vance begin your relationship?" Mark glanced at Chloe, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "It was after Sarah and I separated," he said, the lie rolling off his tongue with practiced ease. "I met Chloe a few months ago." "Is that right?" Mr. Davis asked. He looked at Chloe. "Miss Vance, do you concur? You met Mark a few months ago?" "She is. She is a terrible liar." Her eyes darted to Mark for a split second before she answered. "Yes, that's right," she said, lifting her chin defiantly. I watched them. They had rehearsed this. They had their story straight. They thought it was airtight. Here it comes. The moment I had been waiting for. "That's very interesting," Mr. Davis said. He slid a piece of paper across the table toward Mark's lawyer. "Because this is a copy of a lease agreement for an apartment at the Pinnacle, dated 2 years ago. The tenant is listed as Chloe Vance." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "And the financial guarantor, the person who co-signed and took legal responsibility for the lease, is Mark Miller." The silence that followed was even more profound than the first time. Mark went completely white. He looked like he had been punched in the stomach. Chloe's smug smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, panicked confusion. She stared at Mark, her mouth opening and closing silently. Mark's lawyer snatched the paper. He read it, and I saw the color drain from his face as well. He looked up at Mark, his eyes wide with disbelief and fury. This was clearly news to him. Mark had lied to his own lawyer. This could be a forgery," Mark's lawyer stammered, but his voice lacked any conviction. "It's not," Mr. Davis said calmly. "We have the building manager who is willing to testify that Mark not only co-signed the lease, but also paid the penalty in cash to break it right before Ms. Vance moved into my client's home." He then pulled out another stack of papers. "And these," he said, dropping them on the table with a heavy thud, "are Mark's bank statements for the last 3 years. They show monthly payments to Miss Vance disguised as consulting fees, totaling over $200,000. Payments that began long before you even purchased the house." The room was a vacuum of shock. Mark was staring at the papers, his breathing ragged. Chloe was looking at Mark, her expression curdling from confusion into betrayal. She was realizing, right there in that room, that he was not the brilliant mastermind she thought he was. He was just a cornered, desperate liar. I decided it was my turn to speak. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension like a knife. "You lied on the mortgage application, Mark," I said. He flinched, his head snapping up to look at me. It was the first time he had shown any emotion other than smugness. Now, all I saw was fear. "What?" he whispered. "The mortgage application for our house," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "It's a federal document. You are required to disclose all financial liabilities. You swore that you had, but you failed to disclose that you were the legal guarantor on Chloe's lease. That's bank fraud." The mediator's eyes went wide. Mark's lawyer put his head in his hands. "It's also wire fraud," I added, my gaze unwavering. "When you had the title transferred to Chloe for $1, you used electronic means to transfer a fraudulently obtained asset. And we have evidence that the notary you used to witness my signature was not a licensed notary at all, but a personal friend of yours from college. That invalidates the entire document." Chloe let out a small, strangled gasp. "What is she talking about?" she demanded, her voice high and shrill. She turned on Mark. "You said this was all legal. You said it was clean." Mark didn't answer her. He just stared at me, his face a mask of horrified realization. He finally understood. He was not in control. He had never been in control. He had just been a fool who left a trail of breadcrumbs for a bloodhound. "So here are your options," I said, leaning forward. I felt a surge of power. It was clean and cold and righteous. Option 1. You sign a document right now turning over the house to me, free and clear, with no claim to any equity. You will also wire me a cash settlement of $250,000 to cover the money you stole from our joint accounts and for the emotional distress caused by your elaborate fraud. We sign an NDA, and this all stays a private matter. I paused, letting that sink in. Option 2, I said, my voice dropping to an icy whisper. You refuse, and Mr. Davis and I will walk out of this room. His very next call will be to the U.S. Attorney's Office to report the bank fraud. My next call will be to the bank that holds the mortgage, informing them that their loan was secured under fraudulent pretenses. They will likely call the loan due immediately. And then we will file a civil suit for fraud that will make all of this public record. Your name, your business, your reputation, all of it gone. And that's before you face a federal indictment. I leaned back in my chair. The choice is yours, Mark. What will it be? The room was utterly still. The only sound was Mark's harsh, shallow breathing. He looked at his lawyer, who just gave him a slight, grim shake of the head. There was no way out, no legal loophole to slip through. Chloe was staring at him, her eyes filled with a furious, dawning horror. Her dream house, her life of luxury, it was all built on a foundation of lies that was now crumbling into dust. "You promised me," she hissed at him, her voice trembling with rage. "You said I was set for life. You promised me that house." Mark ignored her completely. His world had shrunk to me and the choice I had laid before him. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine hatred in his eyes. The hatred of the defeated. He finally spoke, his voice a choked whisper. "I'll sign." Mr. Davis slid a new set of documents across the table. "Sign here," he said, "and here, and here." He pointed to the lines just as Mark had once done to me. Mark picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold it. He signed his name, his perfect, confident signature now a jagged, angry scrawl. He pushed the papers back across the table. It was done. As soon as the papers were signed, Chloe erupted. She stood up so fast, her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You coward," she shrieked at Mark. "You useless lying coward. You let her win. You promised me everything." She started hitting his arm, her fists flailing. Mark just sat there, taking it, his face a blank mask of ruin. The mediator stood up quickly. "I believe we are finished here," she said, her voice strained. Mr. Davis and I stood up. We gathered our papers. I didn't look back at the chaos I was leaving behind. The sound of Chloe's shrill accusations and Mark's dead silence followed us out the door. Walking down the hallway, I felt a strange lightness. It wasn't joy. It was the absence of a terrible weight. The weight of betrayal, of injustice, of being made to feel small and foolish. That weight was gone. I had not just taken back my house. I had taken back my power. Mr. Davis walked me to the elevator. He looked at me, his professional demeanor softening for a moment. "You were incredible in there, Sarah," he said. "Truly." "You were the one with the plan," I said. "It was your discovery." He corrected me. "Your strength." He never knew what hit him. The elevator doors opened. As I stepped inside, I felt the last year of pain and anger begin to recede, leaving something new in its place. Something harder, but also something cleaner. I was free. That evening, I met Jessica for dinner. We went to a nice Italian restaurant, one Mark had always said was too expensive. I ordered the most expensive bottle of champagne on the menu. "To new beginnings," Jessica said, raising her glass. Her eyes were shining with pride. "To justice," I said, clinking my glass against hers. The champagne was crisp and cold. It tasted like victory. We talked for hours. I recounted every detail of the final confrontation. Jessica listened, her expression shifting from outrage to righteous satisfaction. "I wish I could have been a fly on the wall," she said, shaking her head in amazement. To see Chloe's face when she realized her sugar daddy was a fraud and her dream house was gone. It was satisfying, I admitted, but also pathetic. They were just so small in the end. "That's because they are small people, Sarah," she said, her voice serious. "Greedy, selfish, small-minded people. You are not. You are strong. You fought back and you won." Her words meant more to me than she knew. For so long, Mark had made me feel like I was the sensible, boring one, while he was the big-dreaming, exciting one. I had believed it. But his dreams were built on my foundation. Without me, he was nothing. A few days later, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Sarah?" a woman's voice said. It was strained and hostile. I recognized it immediately. It was Mark's mother, Eleanor. "Hello, Eleanor," I said, my voice neutral. "I cannot believe what you have done," she began, her voice rising with indignation. "You have ruined him. You have taken everything from him." I felt a flash of the old anger, the enabler, the woman who had always looked at me with a faint air of disapproval, who always thought her precious son could have done better. "Eleanor," I said, my voice cold and firm. "Let me be very clear. I did not take anything from Mark. I took back what he stole from me. Your son is a thief and a con man. He planned for years to steal my inheritance and leave me with nothing. The only thing I have done is expose him. He made a mistake," she insisted. "He fell in love. You should have some compassion." I almost laughed. It was so absurd. "He did not make a mistake," I replied, my patience gone. "He executed a plan, a cruel, calculated criminal plan. And it failed. The consequences he is facing are his own creation. He is lucky I didn't send him to prison, which is what he deserves." There was a stunned silence on the other end. I don't think anyone had ever spoken to her like that before. "You have a choice," I continued, my voice like ice. "You can continue to believe the fantasy that your son is a poor, misunderstood victim. Or you can accept the reality that he is a grown man who tried to destroy my life for money. Either way, it has nothing to do with me anymore. Do not call me again." I hung up the phone before she could reply. I blocked her number. Another tie cut. Another piece of the old life discarded. It was liberating. The money from the settlement appeared in my bank account 2 days later. $250,000. Seeing it there didn't feel like a windfall. It felt like a reimbursement. It was my money, returned to its rightful owner. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place about a month later. I was in a hurry, running errands on my lunch break. I stopped at a local diner for a quick coffee. As I waited at the counter, I saw a waitress walking toward a table with a heavy tray. She looked tired. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face was pale, and the expensive silk blouse had been replaced by a cheap, stained polyester uniform. It was Chloe. Our eyes met for a brief second across the crowded diner. The recognition was instant. I saw a flash of pure, undiluted resentment in her eyes. The look of someone whose dream had been snatched away. There was no smugness left. No condescending smile. Just the flat, weary anger of someone who had lost. She looked away first, turning abruptly to put the plates down on the table. She didn't look back. I got my coffee and left. I didn't feel pity for her. She was not an innocent victim in this. She was a co-conspirator. She had eagerly participated in the plan to ruin me. She had lived in my house, worn my necklace, and laughed about it. Now she was living with the consequences. She had hitched her wagon to a liar and a thief, and this was where it had gotten her. That weekend, I went back to the house. My house. I had hired a locksmith to change every lock. As I put the new key into the front door, it felt like a sacred act. This was mine. Truly, legally, and morally mine. I walked through the empty rooms. Mark and Chloe had taken all their things. The house felt hollow, but also clean. It was a blank slate. I spent the whole weekend there. I opened all the windows to let the fresh air in. I bought bundles of sage and smudged every single room, from the basement to the attic, chasing out the ghosts of their lies and betrayal. I wanted to erase their energy, to reclaim the space as my own. I sat in one of the rocking chairs on the front porch, a cup of tea in my hands. I looked at the garden I had planted, the flowers now in full bloom. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. The whole ordeal had changed me. The soft, trusting woman I had been was gone. In her place was someone harder, more cynical, more careful. I had learned a brutal lesson about trust, love, and the dark corners of the human heart. But I had also learned something about myself. I had learned that I was stronger than I ever thought possible. I had learned that when pushed into a corner, I wouldn't just cower. I would fight back. I would use my mind, my skills, and my anger as weapons. Mark thought he was taking my future, but he only succeeded in liberating me from a lie. He had tried to make me small, to leave me with nothing. But in the end, he was the one who was diminished. He had lost his wife, his home, a huge sum of money, and the respect of everyone who knew the truth. He was a smaller man than he had been before. I took a sip of my tea. The sun was warm on my face. I was safe. I was secure, and I was whole again. He had taught me that betrayal leaves a scar, but scars are proof of survival. They are a reminder that you were wounded, but you healed, and you are stronger in the broken places. They finally learned what it feels like to be small. And I, in my quiet house, in my reclaimed life, finally felt large enough to fill it all on my own. The weeks that followed were filled with a strange kind of administrative cleansing. It was the boring, unglamorous aftermath of a war. There were more papers to sign, deeds to file, bank accounts to close. Each signature felt like another step away from the life I had lived with Mark. Mr. Davis handled most of it. He would call me with updates, his voice always professional, but with an undercurrent of satisfaction. The title has been officially recorded in your name, Sarah. The joint credit cards have been closed and the balance paid from the settlement funds. Mark's lawyer has confirmed receipt of the signed non-disclosure agreement. Each call was a confirmation of my victory, a nail in the coffin of Mark's deceit. I started the process of making the house truly mine. I packed up every last remnant of him. The clothes he had left in the closet, I donated to a homeless shelter. The books he had on the shelves, I boxed up and left on the curb with a free sign. The photos of us together I took down from the walls. I looked at them one last time, at the smiling faces of two people, one of whom was a stranger to the other. I felt a pang of sadness, not for the man he was, but for the man I had thought he was. Then I dropped them into a trash can. I painted the walls. The neutral beige he had insisted on was replaced with warm, vibrant colors. I bought new furniture, pieces that I chose, that reflected my taste, not a compromise between his and mine. The house slowly started to feel less like a crime scene and more like a home. My home. One afternoon, Jessica came over to help me hang pictures. She held up a frame while I stood back, judging the position. "A little to the left," I said. She shuffled it over. "Here?" "Perfect," I said. As she hammered in the nail, she said, "Have you heard anything about them?" I shook my head. "Nothing. And I don't want to. They're part of my past. I want to leave them there." "Good for you," she said, stepping back to admire her work. "He doesn't deserve to occupy any more of your headspace." But it was harder to evict him from my thoughts than it was from my house. Sometimes at night, I would lie awake and the questions would come back. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed all the signs? The late nights he said were for work. The unexplained expenses he brushed off as business costs. the emotional distance that had grown between us, which I had attributed to stress. I had made excuses for him. I had wanted to believe in the life we were building. I had wanted to believe in him. The hardest part of the betrayal wasn't the loss of the money or the house. It was the loss of my own judgment. It was the feeling that I couldn't trust myself. I talked to a therapist. She helped me understand that I wasn't stupid. I was trusting. And in a loving partnership, trust is not a weakness. It is a requirement. He was the one who had exploited that trust. He was the one who was broken, not me. Slowly, I started to believe her. I started to forgive myself for not being a detective in my own marriage. A couple of months after the final mediation, I got an unexpected email. It was from a man named Tom Peterson. The name was familiar, but I couldn't place it. The subject line was Mark Miller. My heart did a nervous flip. I opened it. "Dear Sarah," it began. "You don't know me, but I was one of the investors in Mark's startup, or what he called a startup. I use the term investor loosely. I gave him $10,000, which I now realize was a complete waste." I sat up straighter. "I'm writing to you because I heard through the grapevine that you two divorced and that it was complicated. I also heard that his business partner, Chloe Vance, is no longer with the company. The whole thing has imploded. I'm trying to figure out where my money went. Mark isn't answering his phone. I found your professional email online, and I know you're an accountant. I was hoping you might be able to shed some light on what happened with the company's finances. Any information would be helpful as I consider my legal options." I stared at the email. Another victim. A smaller one, but a victim nonetheless. Mark's web of deceit was wider than I had known. He hadn't just been stealing from me. He had been stealing from his friends, his contacts, anyone who was naive enough to believe in his grand vision. I thought about what to do. The NDA I had signed prevented me from discussing the details of our divorce settlement. But it didn't prevent me from talking about things that were a matter of public record, or things I had discovered independently. I wrote back to Tom Peterson. "Dear Tom," I wrote, "I cannot discuss the specifics of my divorce. However, I can tell you that my own investigation into Mark's finances revealed that the funds from his business account were regularly used for non-business expenses, including rent, car payments, and vacations for his girlfriend, Chloe Vance. I have documentation to support this. If you are pursuing legal action, I would suggest your lawyer subpoena the same records. They will tell a very clear story." I hit send. It felt good. It felt right. It was not revenge. It was helping another person find the truth. It was a small act of justice. A few weeks later, I got another email from Tom. "Thank you," it said. My lawyer got the records. It was all there, just like you said. I'm joining a group of other small investors in a lawsuit against him. We're not just suing for the money. We're filing a complaint for fraud. I just wanted to thank you. You gave me the push I needed to fight back." I smiled. Mark's troubles were just beginning. The fire I had started was spreading. He had thought he could just sign some papers, pay me off, and walk away. But his actions had consequences that would ripple out far beyond our mediation room. Life settled into a new, quiet rhythm. I found joy in simple things, working in my garden, reading a book on my porch, cooking dinner for myself. Exactly what I wanted to eat, with no one to please but me. I reconnected with old friends. I took a solo vacation to the coast, something Mark had never wanted to do. I was rebuilding my life, piece by piece, and I was doing it on my own terms. One crisp autumn day, I was at a local farmer's market. I was buying apples, enjoying the cheerful chaos of the crowd. As I turned away from a stall, I almost bumped into someone. "Oh, excuse me," I said. I looked up and froze. It was Mark. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His clothes were rumpled. The confident, charming man I had married was gone. In his place was a tired, defeated-looking man with haunted eyes. He looked older than his 40 years. He stared at me, his mouth slightly open. He looked as shocked as I felt. "Sarah," he said. His voice was raspy. I just looked at him. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel pain. I felt nothing. He was just a person, a stranger I had once known. I I wanted to say, he stammered, "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air between us. "Sorry?" I said, my voice flat. "What are you sorry for, Mark? Are you sorry you did it, or are you just sorry you got caught?" He flinched as if I had slapped him. "That's not fair," he mumbled. "Fair?" I let out a short, mirthless laugh. "You want to talk about fair?" "Nothing about what you did was fair. You tried to ruin me. You tried to leave me homeless and penniless after 12 years of marriage. So you can take your apology and you can keep it. It's worthless. Just like you." The cruelty of my own words surprised me, but they were true. And the truth was all I had left to give him. He just stood there, looking at me, his face crumbling. I saw a flicker of the old Mark then, the one who could turn on the charm, the one who could manipulate a situation to get what he wanted. He opened his mouth to say something else, probably another excuse, another lie. I didn't let him. "Goodbye, Mark," I said. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I could feel his eyes on me, but I kept walking. I blended back into the crowd, leaving him standing alone with his worthless apology. That was the last time I ever saw him. I heard things, of course. Small-town gossip travels fast. I heard the lawsuit from his investors was moving forward. I heard he had to sell his car. I heard his mother had to lend him money for a cheap apartment on the other side of town. I heard he was struggling to find work. His reputation in tatters. His grand plan had left him with less than nothing. He had gambled everything on one big lie, and he had lost spectacularly. As for me, my life continued to get better. I excelled at work. I was offered a partnership at my firm. I traveled. I made new friends. I even started dating again. Cautiously at first, but with a new, clearer sense of what I wanted and what I would not tolerate. One evening, I was having dinner with my new partner, a kind, steady man named David. We were sitting on my porch in the rocking chairs watching the sunset. "You seem happy," he said, smiling at me. "I am," I said. And I realized it was completely true. I was deeply, genuinely happy. "This house is beautiful," he said. "It has such a good feeling about it." I looked around at the home I had fought for. The home I had cleansed and reclaimed and filled with my own life. "It does now," I said. "It took a lot of work to make it that way." In that moment, I thought about Mark and Chloe. I wondered where they were, what they were doing. I hoped they were miserable. But then, another thought came to me, clearer and more powerful. I hoped I would never think of them again. Their story was over. Mine was just beginning. The house was not just a building of wood and nails. It was a monument to my own resilience. It was the place where I had lost everything and then found myself. And that was a foundation that no one could ever take away from me again.